Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well and having a fantastic week. In today's video I'm going to talk about the best kind of places to put your bird's cage. Now you may have an idea already, or maybe you already have your bird's cage in place, but I want to give you some suggestions, some advantages and disadvantages of different places that you can place your bird's cage. And I'm joined by Pickles P, who's such a good girl, and we're going to tell you all about it today. Now, generally speaking, you want to have your bird's cage in the place that you spend most of your time, because you want to be spending a lot of time with your bird. For us, it's actually in the living room or the lounge, or what used to be the lounge. It's now just the bird room, but that is where we spend most of our time, is where we do a lot of our work, and we just like hanging out in here, and this is where we have the most space as well. So this is where we house our birds, and you may find that the living room and lounge is the best place for your bird as well. If you spend a lot of time in there with your family, or if that's just your place to relax or do work, then that is a really great space to have your bird. The other good thing about the lounge or the study is often they can be some of the bigger rooms in the house. There'll be more opportunity for your bird when they're spending out of cage time to explore and forage and do all that kind of good stuff. Now there is a downside to perhaps being in the lounge, especially if you are in there until late at night, is again you could potentially disrupt your bird, and if they're kind of listening to you talking, or you're playing music or video games, whatever it is, that is going to be disruptive and impacting their sleep, because as we say, birds need about 11 to 12 hours of uninterrupted sleep at night. It doesn't have to be pitch black, doesn't have to be silent, but they do need to be undisturbed. And if you're having kind of an hour here and then they're awake and an hour there, they are going to end up being quite grumpy, just like us when we don't get enough sleep, and that can lead to undesirable behaviours. Another great place to have your bird is in your study or workspace, as long as they are quiet, because again you often spend a lot of time if you work from home in that space, so that can be a great area for you to spend a lot of time with your bird. Now, one of the areas I don't really recommend having your bird live in is actually the kitchen. I know a lot of people do this, especially if you have kind of open plan settings. But the problem with the kitchen is it can get very humid and then not humid, and that kind of drastic change can really stress out your bird. Same with temperature as well. If you're doing cooking and things like that, it's a big temperature fluctuation and all that steam and that kind of thing from cooking. And if you're anything like me, then smoke from burning your food is not going to be very good for your bird. But also you need to be obviously very careful about what kinds of things you have in the kitchen, and making sure that you have bird safe cookware. Obviously that's a given anyway, but you want to be making sure that they are staying away from any of those kinds of things, because lots of cooking smells and stuff like that, it's just not the best place to keep them. But if you do have an open plan living space, there can obviously be in that kind of through lounge to the kitchen, but more in the kind of lounge area rather than smack bang in the kitchen, where it's not necessarily the best place to be. Now, with all the things I'm saying in this video, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just giving you some advice based on experience and what we've seen from other birds. Now, a lot of people have their birds in their bedroom, and I get it, especially if you're younger as well. Sometimes that's the best place for your bird. It's where you're going to spend most of your time, in your bedroom, hanging out, doing your schoolwork and that kind of thing. But there are some things to consider when you are keeping a bird in your bedroom that may be a disadvantage. The first one is, when you're sleeping, you're normally doing big deep breaths. That's just what happens when we sleep, nice big deep breaths. The problem is you're going to be taking nice big deep breaths of all of your bird's feather dust and stuff like that, and dander and all the dusty bits that come off of your bird, which isn't ideal. And this can be mitigated by using an air purifier, which we recommend for all birds. Again, I have that in my Amazon store, link in the description. But that's just something to bear in mind, that at night you're going to be breathing in all of that feather dust, and that's not great for anyone. The other thing to consider is, whilst we don't want our birds to be sort of in complete darkness and silence when they go to bed, they are still going to be disrupted by you doing things at night. Now, we don't recommend fully covering birds. It causes a lot of problems, things like hormones and trapping in stale air in their environment, and lots of different things like that, and stress as well. You can partially cover your bird by covering the top and the sides and leaving the front open, whichever way you need to. But obviously having somebody moving around in that room for most of the night till you go to bed can be disruptive for some birds. And again, some birds will be okay with it, but I want to make you aware that this could be something that's disruptive for your bird, which could then lead on to undesirable behaviours. Now, leading on from that, again, as I said, birds can get disrupted if they are light sleepers, or if they are just sensitive and excited about sharing the room with us. And a perfect example of that was baby Olive. When we rescued her, she was quarantined in our bedroom because that was the only space that we could pop her in, and she was very excited about staying in the same room as us overnight. Then she would start playing with her toys at 4 in the morning. every single night. So none of us slept during the quarantine period, but that just shows that sometimes birds can get overexcited and they just want to kind of take part in what you're doing, even if it's in the middle of the night. Now, the positive of having your bird in your bedroom, especially if you've just brought a new bird home, is you can do a lot of passive bonding work. So say for example, maybe you're watching one of David and I's videos, or you're studying, or you're watching TV and stuff. You can just do your own thing while your bird is in their cage, and they can observe your body language, how you speak, and just get used to you from a distance rather than having that active interaction. And actually passive bonding can help any bird, even if you've had them for a really long time. So it's just a way of kind of being in your bird's space without needing that direct contact, because again, when the only contact we have with our birds is kind of direct, sometimes that can lead to a bird who is less confident and maybe needs to be a bit more independent. So if they can kind of be in your space without needing to directly interact with you, that's a great way to do it in the bedroom, because if you're spending a lot of time in there, and so are they, then they can have lots of fun and just be around you. Right, now let's talk about some less specific things, just things that you may find in various rooms in the house. The first one I wanted to mention is it's worth not putting your bird directly in front of a window, because this can cause a lot of problems. Windows tend to have quite a big fluctuation with temperature and possible drafts coming in as well, so it's not advised to have your bird's cage right in front of that window, because that in turn can cause a lot of stress on them, which can then weaken their immune system and potentially make them sick. That's not to say that they can't be near a window. Maybe they can sort of peek from one side, or they can have out of cage window time and a window perch and all sorts of cool things like that, or play stands in front of the window. That's totally fine. But when their only space when they are enclosed in their cage is in front of the window, they can't escape from that temperature fluctuation or draft, and that's not going to be good for them. Now, similarly with the windows, you want to have your bird away from radiators and air conditioning vents and things like that. Again, they could be in the same room as your bird, but you don't want them directly blowing on them or having that heat coming directly onto your bird, because again, they can't escape from that area. So we want to make sure that we're giving our birds choice, but also not putting them in a position where it's going to be too hot, too cold, something blowing on them, that kind of thing, which again is going to cause them stress. And one of the best things that you can do is just have your bird's cage against a plain wall, and have that back of the cage next to the wall. Not completely fully against it, but again, having at least one side against the wall can give a lot of birds safety. Sometimes if that cage is like smack bang in the middle of the room and all sides are exposed, some birds can be a little bit nervous about that. So having one side against the wall is a really good idea. However, if you enclose lots of sides around the cage, then that can lead to hormonal behaviour, because they'll be really enclosed. Some people put their birds' cages in like a kind of a cupboard or an alcove. That can actually not always be a good idea. So it's best to have maybe one or two sides next to a wall, and then the rest of it nice and open so they can see what's going on, and it doesn't create a nest-like space which may lead to hormonal behaviour. And another point worth mentioning is it's worth not having a bird's cage right next to a TV. Again, the flashing images and stuff is going to be potentially stressful over a long period of time. However, if you don't use your TV very often, that's okay. So a good example of this, chip and fish are near our TV in the bird room. We don't use it that often. David plays video games and that kind of thing, but we don't really kind of watch and binge watch TV in here. But when he is playing video games, chip and fish are really interested. They come down and watch. But again, that's not for a long period of time, maybe for like an hour or two a day. But if you've got the TV on all day because you like to watch your things on there, that could be quite stressful if it's on all the time, because again, they can't escape from the flashing images and they can't escape from lots and lots of noise. So that's just an idea. Again, some birds will enjoy a bit of TV time, but not all day. And it's better to kind of do that when they're having out of cage time, have the TV on one side of the room and their cage on the other. That brings me to the end of the video. Pickles and I are just going to have a little cuddle and snuggle as we do the outro. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'd like to know where you keep your bird's cage in a house and why that works for you, or your thoughts on this. Again, this isn't a judgmental video. If you have your bird's cage in the kitchen, that's fine if that works for you, and I'd love to hear how that works for you as well. So do let me know in the comments what species you have, where they are in the house, and how that works for you and why you like having them there. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day. Take care and see you later.